But like I was saying earlier, if you want to 100x this restriction rampage, what else is coming down the pipeline? They've been talking about it, and we all know they want us to do digital ID. That's the objective. We already know it's going everywhere, and we've talked about it, so that's nothing new. But how can we force it in America? And the first way, they got to get us into a nationalized database. And I know a lot of people, they're saying, well, what's the difference? They already got this data. There is a difference between state and nationalized databases. If this was the case, they wouldn't do a lot of things. Like right now, the agricultural secretary is saying we're not going to distribute because it's coming around again. The government shutdown is going to happen again here in next month because they only passed it until next month, so it's going to come around again. But you know how they were talking about they were going to restrict SNAP benefits. But they were saying this, the agricultural secretary says, if states don't provide us with identification of people who are receiving SNAP benefits in their state, including immigration information, we are going to withhold federal SNAP funding benefits.
In February of this year, we asked for all the states for the first time to turn over their data to the federal government to let the USDA partner with them to root out this fraud, to make sure that those who really need food stamps are getting them, but also to ensure that the American taxpayer is protected. 21 states said yes, not surprised. 29 states said yes, not surprisingly, the red states, and that's where all of that data, that fraud comes from. But 21 states, including California, New York, and Minnesota, the blue states, continue to say no. So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer.
If the government already has all this information, why do they need states to give them the information? Which shows you there is a disconnect between state information and federal information. So the government truly wants and needs a federalized database. So you can't say they already have all this information. They don't have the details like the states do. So how they force that is through Real ID, because Real ID is done through your states. So you have to get the ID through your state, and then you have to go through the federalized process of the Real ID. And once they have this database, then they can do all this stuff, the firewalls, the internet restrictions, tokenized financial programming. Once they get everybody into the Real ID system, then they can initialize digital ID. But that's the first premise. So all these people are saying they already have it. They don't. If they did, they wouldn't need any data from states. They would. That's an arbitrary statement.
So who's restraining him?
Who? Who's this him?
The government from being revealed.
The states. That's why they're asking the states for this data.
Yeah. So once the states are removed.
Well, once everybody gets a Real ID, yes, then the federal government will have all the information the states have. And so that's the whole reason for the Real ID. It's a way to get all the data that even the states have, which they need in detail to create this digital ID. So how are they going to do that? There's a lot of us who don't comply with Real ID, and we've just been going through the airports, but flight restrictions is still coming around. So this past week, they said
20 years after Congress passed the Real ID law and 7 months after Real IDs were required at airports, the TSA says time is up. Starting on February 1st, if you don't have a Real ID, the TSA says a temporary pass at the airport will cost you $45 to fly domestically. That new non-refundable fee more than double the $18 payment the TSA recently announced, designed to cover additional technology and security costs. The TSA says the fee can be paid in advance, online, or in person at the airport, and will be valid for just 10 days if you're flying and don't have a Real ID. After that, travelers will have to pay yet again. All of it leading to enhanced security screening and some delays.
The TSA says those without a proper ID will also have to verify their identity through a biometric or biographic system before they can pass through.
Of course, we need to make some money. The whole goal was to tax you. Tariffs ain't good enough. Nothing ain't good enough. But we're going to tax you. We're going to take this money and we're going to put it in our pocket. But the main thing is we're going to restrict your flight access. You will get into this Real ID system. Now, there's a lot of people says, I don't fly, I don't do anything. But think about what they can start restricting. Right now, it's flight. Well, if they say if you want to go on a cruise, what if they say, almost federal services, you can't get food stamps, you can't get Medicare, you can't get Social Security, you can't get federal, because those are federal services. You can't get federal services unless you get a real ID. Eventually, they're going to force people into this King Midas system. And that's what I'm coining it, because everything's gold. For Trump, everything's gold. So I think the super system will be called the King Midas system. But ultimately, that's the objective. And regardless if you believe it or not, I think the government has conspired, that's the word, conspired with the clocks. And even the clocks are saying, you're wasting your time. Stop thinking about it. Stop contemplating about it. Because at the end of the day, you just need to comply and stop wasting time.
The clocks in your home have finalized their evaluation. They have decided that you are waiting for something that will not come. The clocks do not believe this is a productive use of your time, and so they have collectively agreed to stop showing it to you.
You're no longer going to see time.
I feel like, I have a lot to say on this. I actually used to be a manager of Kmart, a floor manager. Yeah, so I was pretty up there. But so I know what I'm talking about when I say that. I agree with everything you're saying. This is coming, and they used to fly me out a lot. Not Kmart, but the airliners when I was going to visit my dying grandma and stuff. But so I'm not saying like I was a big deal or anything. But I do know what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, since you know all that, then you should also understand the implications. Once they have this digital database, they're going to control your accesses. If you're on a list, like those toilet time people, they can say, hey, toilet time people, since now, once they establish the digital database system, this King Midas system, they can say, now you're marked. No more internet, no more utilities, no more phone service, no more job application, no more mortgages, no more rent, no more social media, no more banks, no more schools, no more car dealerships, no more traveling, no more packaging. You can't ship anything. Online retailers, you can't shop at a supermarket. And you're just like, how are they going to do that? They can make a federal requirement that you can't use services unless you verify with a real ID. And if they do that, everybody will comply. But once you are in that system, they can mark you because it's not states or anything else. Now it's federalized. They can mark you. And because all of these services are going to be required to verify your identity.
Is there a way to avoid this mark?
No. I mean, look at the Britain. They already established digital ID.
They're already marking people.
And Australia and Vietnam and a lot of places, they're already enforcing digital ID. And of course, they use in the United Kingdom, they're utilizing the idea of immigration. And of course, I'm surprised that Trump hasn't utilized that here. Because once, let's say, if you're an employer and the government requires you must verify, and if we can't verify that your expenditures are because they are verified employees, you'll be audited. And this can all be done through an AI system. Forget IRS. You don't need people there. They're just going to start flagging everything through AI systems. And then you're going to just lose your business. So then it's going to force people to comply. And this would start to mitigate all these illegal immigrational job systems. But then it could go to supermarkets like Walmart. It's like you have to get the Walmart app. They have to verify you have a real ID.
See, lucky for me, Kmart is already closed. So,
and then once they come in, there's always a TV there. Those biometric scans are already going to be connected, and it's going to connect with your, just like Amazon. When you go into Amazon store, it automatically syncs with your Amazon app. It'd be the same thing. You walk into a Walmart, it syncs with your app. If your app isn't synced to a real ID verification, you'll go to checkout and they'll say, unfortunately, you don't have a verified ID. You can't buy anything here. So eventually the digital ID will be utilized to restrict services.
Yeah, I already got Kmarted, so I don't need anything. I don't even need to worry.
But that's ultimately the objective, is that once you're in the federalized system, you can't run. States can't protect you. There is no anywhere.